only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Hey, welcome to another episode of For the Republic. We are your hosts, Nico and Brittany Fideli. How y'all doing out there? We're doing great. We're doing really good. Real good. Feeling real good. Hope you guys are feeling good. What's going on with you? Feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, it was a beautiful day today.
Yeah?
We went to the park.
Yeah,
it was fun.
We did go to the park.
Walked a couple miles, checked out the water.
Yep. Realized how out of shape I was, man. I was tired after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it was getting bad when I had to roll you back to the car.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh, man, that's good stuff. I still went golfing afterwards, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. I didn't do it as well as I wanted to, but I did pretty decent, so.
For being tired?
Yeah, for being tired.
Yeah.
And, I thought my back was going to give out, but I made it through.
I think this is the first decent weekend that we have had probably all year. Because, up to this point, it's either been nasty on Saturday and okay on Sunday or vice versa. We really haven't had, a Saturday, Sunday that has been, good, both of them. Yeah. So it's, our first really nice weekend, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a hot one.
A hot one, yeah. Nice getting some sun. Hot. Getting some sun, man. Get that farmer's tan going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do the farmer's stand, but yeah.
If this is your first time here, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, click on the bell icon. And if you're returning, share the video, please.
Yeah. Comments have been a little sparse lately.
Yeah.
You guys jump in there, tell us how we're doing. Even if all you want to tell us is you guys suck.
Yeah, go ahead.
We want to hear some feedback. We want to hear what you have to say about the issues that we talk about.
Right. Yeah.
Even if you want to talk to us about your cat or something.
Yeah,
you can do that too.
Willing to talk about your cat.
Yeah.
If you want.
Or if you want to talk about how cool our style is with our sleeveless shirts this week.
Yeah, rocking sleeveless. Got to represent USA.
Style. Yeah.
To show off my muscles.
Don't do that. It's embarrassing.
So, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a jam-packed show.
Yeah, jam-packed show. A lot of stuff to unlock.
Yeah.
What's been going on this week?
We got 3. Yes, I know that everybody wants to talk about Roe v. Wade and that decision. We will definitely talk about that. But there are also 2 other important Supreme Court decisions that came down. It was a really good week. Yeah,
the Supreme Court decided to drink their coffee, and they had their caffeine high, and they just did some work.
They got to work. They got it done. But let's start off with the hot topic. Everybody wants to talk about the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, leaving abortion restrictions to the states.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Every American should be super excited about this decision.
Whatever side you are on this issue, this is a win for America.
Mm-hmm. Because the Constitution is being recognized.
Right.
The overstep of SCOTUS 50 years ago is being recognized.
Yeah.
So as an American, as a person who recognizes that we have a government system that is set up to protect the people, you should be excited that this decision has been made, because Roe v. Wade was a complete overstep of that system.
Yeah.
And SCOTUS is recognizing that and kicking the legislation back to the states. That's why it's so important to vote for the people that support the issues that you support I'm
really happy about, even though it took us a lot longer than it should have. It went through the proper channels. It happened the right way.
Yeah.
There's so many people that I've talked to who have been pro-life and want to just write an executive order to ban abortions. If you're an American, you shouldn't want that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Even though you agree with the sanctity of life and how important it is, and you want abortion to be completely banned, you're justified for having that opinion. But to write it off as an executive order, or thinking that you're gonna like people were upset that Trump didn't just ban abortion. Like,
Right.
I mean, that's not how this system works.
Right. And it shouldn't work that way.
Yeah, and even though we've seen that happen in the court systems the other way, that we shouldn't undo it the same way.
Right.
Right. So, so this is a fantastic ruling. There's actually two rulings in this decision.
Mm-hmm.
There was the 6-3 vote for the what was
Mississippi
it? The
law?
Mississippi law. Yes, it was the Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization that challenged the Mississippi law.
Mm-hmm.
So that was restricting abortion. So that Mississippi was not able to enact that.
Right. Because of Roe v.
Because
Wade.
of Roe v. Wade. So there was a lawsuit that was brought up to the Supreme that made it to the Supreme Court, and they voted 6-3 to allow Mississippi to enforce that law. And the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade was 5-4. And the difference being Justice John Roberts, he he agreed that the Mississippi law should, which is odd to me. I don't like that. That to me is not very consistent. I'm not really a big fan of John Roberts. He's not very consistent. He says that the Mississippi law should be a thing, but then overturning Roe v. Wade is too far. I don't. Maybe it's like something that was already decided. So like undoing that decision would be like going back on it. But like the thing is, if something is wrong, it doesn't matter how far it is into the future. It's still going to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like morality doesn't change just because time goes on.
Right. Justice Roberts reminds me of the kind of person who you'd be like, you know what we should do? We should build a house for a homeless person. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And then you're like, you know what? We should put siding on that house. And he's like, whoa, 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 slow your roll. It's a little excessive, don't you think? Siding on a house?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a kind of silliness. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what does this decision mean to you?
I think it's great. I think it's a major victory as an American that the Constitution is being upheld, that it's being recognized that this is the thing that really bugs me, is that people are comparing constitutional rights to abortion, saying like, oh well, you want your right to own guns, but then you don't want to let us murder babies. It's like, well, first off, the right to bear arms, that's a constitutional right. Your right to free speech, that's a constitutional right. Those things are constitutionally protected rights. Abortion is not a constitutionally protected right. So I think it's important to recognize that it's not, and put it at the legislative level where it needs to be.
Right.
So that's why this is such a great victory for all Americans, because the way that the government system is set up, it's there to protect us. There is one thing that is protecting us from the government completely running our lives and controlling everything that we do, and it is the Constitution.
Right.
So when that is recognized, and when our SCOTUS does their job and upholds the Constitution, that's a great victory for Americans.
Right.
As a conservative, this is a great victory, because there are now going to be places where you can go in America and you can share the like beliefs of the people around you, which is to not literally suction unborn children out of the uterus. And you can go to those places and you can live amongst people who are like-minded and who have the same values that you have, and vote in the kind of people who value those things as well.
Right.
And so you now have the option to do that when it comes to the issue of abortion, where before, because SCOTUS had overstepped 50 years ago, you did not have, there was no safe haven in America for people who believe that abortion is absolutely outrageously wrong and tragic and disgusting.
Right. So, and Ben Shapiro says this a lot. You know, we've shared this a lot with people.
Benny boy.
We've come to a point in this country where like we're so politically divided that we need to let New York be New York, let California be California, let Texas be Texas, let Florida be Florida. Like we need. We've come to the point where we've grown so big and the political climate has become so hostile that it's hard to, not saying that we can't all get along, if you will, but we've lost the sense of having shared values in this country. You can even go back 20 years ago where you and I could have different political opinions, but we had same values, right?
Yeah.
We could.
Have you seen that all week? Like, if you agree with SCOTUS, then unfriend me. I can't even deal with you.
Right. That's a normal thing. That has become our norm in our society.
Unfriend me.
Yeah.
First off, if you are dumb, don't expect me to hit the unfriend button because I'm not going to take the time to go onto your page just to hit unfriend. Do it your freaking self, man. Freaking lazy.
I love that.
So that
too.
unfriend me if you disagree with me. How about you unfriend me, you lazy turd?
Lazy turd. But yeah, so we this is the norm now. Where and I mean, I'm gonna call it like it is. There's definitely some conservatives who don't get along with people at the left, but it's mostly the left that doesn't get along with the right.
Yep.
And there's that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any less of those people. But it seems like the political climate is if you don't conform, then you are casted out.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, to bring it back, this is so huge. It's going to allow states to put in the restrictions that they've been wanting to put in the restrictions all along.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about it from the standpoint of the voter, right?
This is what really irritates me, though, is like people, like liberals have been looking at this and they've been saying like, oh, like Roe v. Wade, it's so great. We have the right to abortion. And then states like New York take it really far. And they're like, you know what? Let's do abortion up to birth. And then let's write in legislation that we can maybe pass possibly in the future for post-birth abortion, meaning babies who are born alive, either through failed abortions, failed abortions that are happening in the third trimester, or babies that are born with disabilities.
I'm pretty sure that does happen in New York. It's just that it's not protected by legislation.
Or babies that are born and then they're not wanted. They can leave them to die on the table. That's legislation that they're wanting to push forth, and people celebrate that. They're like, oh, look at New York being so brave, and then like other states like Tennessee or Alabama restrict your abortion rights, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so wrong. And it's like, that is what the state legislation is for. That is why you vote in your state representatives. If you don't like Alabama's laws, don't live in Alabama.
Right.
Like, that is their right to do that in that state. That is why you vote for your that's why you vote for your leaders. So don't come at me and be like, oh, well, it's so great that some states take it so far, and then get mad when other states choose not to because they have different moral values than you do.
But yeah,
because
that was kind of like where I was headed. Like, if you look at it's good. If you look at the standpoint from the voter, constantly red states over and over again. Like, you see, like Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, like the Bible Belt, like those have consistently been red, and they can't do anything with this issue because it's been federalized. Mm-hmm. We have a federalist system in this country, meaning that we have two forms of government. We have a local and federal government, and when the federal government oversteps their boundaries, they limit what the states can do,
and they limit your ability,
your voice. Your voice gets quenched. It's not like that literally is probably one of the most things that ticks me off with the rhetoric of the left, is that whenever a Republican or a conservative wants to expand the voters' rights, like expand the voters' voice, like allow your voice to be heard more, it's always cutting against our democracy. Our democracy is always at risk. Like, I'm sorry, our democracy is not at risk when you have to show voter ID.
Right.
Our democracy is not at risk when you give power to the states.
Right.
That literally is strengthening our democracy.
Right.
It's because you don't agree with it.
Right. Right, because if the tables are turned and it's someone like New York pushing post-birth abortion, they're like, oh yes, this is so great, this should be celebrated. Well, like, if you want to vote in representatives that believe in that, then by all means, that is your right as a voter to do. But that is why your vote is so important, and that is why it's important that the federal government does not overstep the state legislation, because it takes away your voice. Because you could, if you could vote in somebody all day long, and if the federal government is overruling their ability to make legislation in your state, then your vote doesn't matter. Your vote literally is squat. Your vote counts for poop if you allow the federal government to continually overstep their bounds. And that is why this is so important, and that is why this should be celebrated. It's an absolute American victory.
And so you wanted to talk about a little bit about RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, not RGB. RGB is red, green, blue. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she even said that Roe v. Wade was never about women's rights.
Right.
It was always given freedom for doctors.
Right.
Because it allowed them to practice abortion.
Right.
So
she believed it was an overstep of SCOTUS. The way that they went about and using Roe versus Wade to restrict abortion in the U.S. She always said that should be overturned and that it was an overstep of SCOTUS. And I think that that's important because Ruth Bader Ginsburg was still
very pro-abortion.
Right. She's very pro-abortion. She was one of the advocates for abortion, but yet she recognized the fact that SCOTUS had overstepped its boundaries and thought that this should be overturned, and that if you wanted to address abortion at a federal level, that it needed to be done in a different way. So even she recognized that.
Right.
And I think it's important to point that out because it's very rare to find liberals who admit that something has been done the wrong way. Most of the time, they just celebrate the fact that they've gotten what they wanted.
Well, that's kind of
so that's really important.
That's kind of exactly like what we were talking about at the top of the show. Is that like Ruth Bader Ginsburg? I do not think was a very good human being. She said a lot of really bad stuff, but like at the end of the day, she recognized what our system was in this country. Right. That was somebody I could coexist with because we shared values. Right. We shared the Constitution. We shared the proper channels of government.
Right.
So that's why we're able to coexist with somebody who's so much different than me. But we've come to the point where it seems like the whole left side of the political aisle, it's mainstream that the Constitution's outdated, that this country was founded on racism, which is completely stupid. I just want to say at this point, I know it's going off on a tangent, but if you buy into the Constitution framed as a racist document, literally it's because of the Constitution that allowed to end racism. And that's why it was framed the way that it was. Understand that slavery, yes, was racist, but when they drafted the Constitution, when they drafted even the Declaration of Independence, it was to eventually wipe it out. It started the framework in which ended up ending slavery. So, like, to think that it was drafted as racist, we would still have racism today because we still use the same systems today. Racism, slavery would still be a thing if it was drafted that way. Right. If it was drafted to frame around slavery, around racism.
It's 2022. There couldn't be slavery. Really? Have you been to China? Because they literally still practice slavery.
Right. That's a perfect example.
Openly practice slavery.
A perfect example of a system that was framed to be oppressive still is oppressive today.
But see, that's why Disney films there, because they support slavery, but they don't film in Georgia because they support abortion as well.
Sorry, I went on this tangent. But anyways,
a little bit of a tangent.
What were you going to say?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry. But I thought that was just really important because last week shows how good the system that we have is still good.
You know, if you wanna go there too, like and talk about racism, if you're like advocating for Black Lives Matter and like Black rights and so on and so forth, you really should go after abortion because abortion is the #1 killer of Black lives in America. So.
Yeah, there you go. That's how you tie it in.
You should really, if you would like to see Black lives improved, you should vote in legislators who are against abortion and who would end abortion because that is the #1 killer of Black lives in America.
So before we go on.
Although you would be led to believe it was the police.
The police.
Yeah.
Not the police. The police. Yeah.
The police.
Them police.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, that's how you say it. We're from the ghetto. The police.
Is it?
Yeah. The police.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been to the ghetto, so.
I took you there. You were like, "Are we in the?" You remember when I took you to?
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh!
Are we in the ghetto? No,
I was
man.
like, "Are we in the ghetto?" You're like, "No, this is a safe area." And I was like, "Isn't that a drug deal happening?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, it is." Well, it doesn't happen all the time. That's pretty funny.
But yeah. So, bottom line is that
you're like, "I love the city." Oh boy.
Bottom line.
Maybe he is on drugs.
Before
somebody check his eyes.
Before we go on to the next topic, this does not, of course, end abortion everywhere.
Nope, it does not.
if you want to live in a state that votes in pro abortion, anti-life is what I like to call them, anti-lifers, then you have every right to do so. I think that we're going to see a continuing trend of red states getting redder and blue states getting bluer.
You know what I thought was really funny?
What?
One of the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, they are also a New Yorker, and they were like sharing this thing about, you know, if you it was like using like camping as like the word for abortion. Like if you need to go camping, like just give me a call and I'll drive you to where you're going camping, and we won't ever talk about it. It'll just be something that happens. And then this person was like, yeah, like I got you, you know. And I'm like, you live in New York, which has like the most open abortion laws of like any other state, maybe save California, but you live in New York. What are you gonna drive them down the street? Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. I'm like, honestly, like, if you have a problem with like people with like abortion issues, and you're like worried about these kids who are at risk, why don't you just like do something to help the kids who are at risk instead of offering rides to people who live down the road from a Planned Parenthood? Yeah, it was kind of funny. I just kind of laughed about it because it was just like, that's like liberal mentality.
Right. It's also liberal mentality that if you grew up with mentally challenged like siblings.
Oh yeah, the chick from The View, like one of the co-hosts of The View was like, abortion should be legal because I know how hard it is to have special needs people in my family, because my step granddaughter has special needs, and my step grandson has autism, and my brother has the mentality of a 1-year-old. And like people are like roasting her, like, are you literally saying that the reason we should have abortion is because there shouldn't be people with special needs on the earth? And she's like, you're mistaking what I meant. Like, well, what did you mean
what
then?
Is it? How else can you interpret that?
And she literally said, I know how hard it is on mothers who have special needs kids. Most of them want to commit suicide. I'm like, I've literally worked with probably over a dozen families with special needs kids, and I don't know a single one of them who wants to commit suicide because their child has special needs. It was like absolutely, it was so asinine. But that's a typical person who looks at somebody else who has a special need kid and thinks like, oh, they assume that child is a burden to that family because they have special needs. And most families who have special needs kids would never trade
it for the world.
They would not consider their children a burden. They would say like that they're the best thing that's ever happened to them, or that like, yeah, life is hard. Like, yes, it's more difficult than the average family, but like we love our kid and we wouldn't change them, you know. So like that's not like, it was so absolutely asinine, and it was like literally anti-special needs. Like it was I was like, okay.
But I mean, like, and that's what the mentality happens when everything is like handed to you on a silver platter, right? Yeah. We were just talking about this, that, you know, it's even harder to, if you're a Christian, it's harder to witness to people, especially being in a really, really blue state, where just everything is so accessible. Everything is given to you. You feel entitled. It's really hard to share the gospel, and as when people think as wicked as they do, and think about basically leaving babies on the table because the mothers don't want them.
You know, it's funny because the Spartans, like the people, Spartans, they had this thing where they had like, they did not allow weakness in their people. So if you were born with like a deformity or special needs, they would throw you over a cliff. And I think that it's very interesting that people would find that like outrageous or wrong, but they would not find it outrageous or wrong to suck a child who is born with disabilities, or like is in the womb with disabilities.
Well, I mean, it's very common practice to get testing for your child, genetic testing to see if your child is at risk for like Down syndrome or something. Right. And you can make
has Down syndrome. Yeah.
You can make your decision.
Right.
Like,
and you know, like a Down syndrome is not even considered like a special needs. It's it's like an extra chromosome. Yeah. So like it's crazy to me that like people, you know, what's even worse to me, what really grinds my gears is when people are like, oh my gosh,
I haven't heard that one in a while.
Like, people who abuse animals, they're so horrible. There's a special place in hell for people who abuse animals. And then they're advocating for abortion. Like, bro, you want to suck babies out of uteruses and you're mad that someone kicked their dog? Like, yes, I hate it too. Like, I can't stand people who abuse animals. I think it's absolutely atrocious. But you know what I think is more atrocious? Killing the unborn. Like, I think people, as much as I love animals, people were made at a far higher level than animals were. God made them in his image. And as a being made in the image of God, we are at a level above animals. And so, yes, I value the human life more than I value animal life. And I think that it's far more outrageous that we suck babies out of the womb for pleasure or for convenience than it is that somebody kicks their dog or doesn't feed their dog. Like, I
how
think
many...
it's crazy.
How many people get like and like you kind of do this sometimes where like you see like a cat or some like animal get hit in the road and you're like, oh my gosh, your kid got hit. How many millions of Americans are like that, but then when it comes to abortion they're just nonchalant about it.
Yeah.
Or like they're so mad about
it's your body, your choice. Oh,
about
really?
Uvalde where
So,
kids,
like, if you
kids
hit-
have gotten killed in mass shootings and they're like, we need to stop the killing of children.
Yeah.
But then they're still abortion. That's fine.
Right. You know, I wonder if you ran over their dog with your car and then they're like, you hit my dog. And then you're just like, my car, my choice. That's the logic of abortion, everyone. I just summed it up for you.
There you go. Oh, there you go. But, but yeah,
times.
so good times. Good times.
So we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a great decision. What else did the Supreme Court do this week?
So the Supreme Court struck down Maine's ban, the state of Maine. They had a ban on using public funds at religious schools. Mm-hmm. So just to sum this up, Maine violated the Constitution when it refused to make public funding available for students to attend, like private religious institutions.
This is courtesy of SCOTUS blog.
SCOTUS blog, yeah, it's pretty good.
.com.
They like. Actually, that's a good place to actually see what they do in the Supreme Court because they like sum it up every day what they do.
Do you remember when people used to say it's the bomb.com?
The bomb.com, yeah, man.
When I hear people say that, it makes me like really upset.
Yeah.
Like I find it like cringy.
It was very cool in the year 2000.
Yeah. You know what else was really cool? Like a few years ago was tight. Oh man, that's tight. I'm like, my clothes are tight. I don't know what you're talking about though.
Tight.
Yeah, it was like the weirdest things with just like it was like SCOTUSblog.com. All I could think of was thebomb.com. That's thebomb.com. I'm like, bleh. It makes me like irrationally angry when I hear people say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I hope that a bunch of people comment thebomb.com just to irritate me because then it would mean we have comments this week.
yeah. Comment below thebomb.com.
Thebomb.com. Hashtag Britney sucks.
But so anyways, why is this important? Why is this good? I feel like this is extremely important. I think this is a very underrated decision. I would put it up there. Actually, I would say all three SCOTUS decisions this week I think are
constitutionally awesome.
I would tend to think that the Roe v. Wade one was probably the most important, but
certainly
like, I put
because
this,
it was the greatest. It was the greatest overstep.
Yeah, it was definitely the greatest overstep, and it's going to save the most lives, I guess, at the end of the day. So, but I feel like this for religious people and Christian conservatives, this is a huge win, and it's very underrated. Why? Because basically, the Supreme Court says that states can't grant you money and choose which school you go to.
Right. Or prevent you from going to certain schools.
This is going to set a precedent that states because there's I don't know if you guys kept up with New York. There was a Jewish school that New York judge said that this Jewish school has to start a homosexual classes or something. Like there was these kids who were gay and they wanted more representation. They wanted to have like classes about it, and the Jewish school
representation matters.
Yeah, the school was like, no, like we're not going to do that. We're a Jewish school, and the judge said that they had to do it because they were an institute. They weren't religious. They were an educational institution. So like this kind of sets the precedent that you cannot discriminate religious institutions. You cannot decide
discriminate against them.
Yeah, discriminate against them.
Right.
So if you get a federal grant, if you get financial aid, it can't be denied to you because you decide to go to a private school or a religious school.
Or like a scholarship. I think it's very funny because they would be like, oh, like you're so smart. You're so smart. Look at your good grades. Let's give you some money to go to college. And then you're like, you know what? I want to go to this Christian college. And they're like, you dummy. You can't have this money now.
Yeah.
You idiot. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well.
It's hilarious.
Well, that can't happen now.
Not anymore. Suck it.
Sorry, what do you got anything to add to that?
No, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think you wrapped it up very well.
All right.
Put a bow on that thing.
Well.
Send it.
Send it. Ship it.
Address unknown. No such number.
What,
no such zone.
What are you doing?
It's like a Elvis Presley song.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a Return to Sender.
Ah, yes. Classic.
I'm trying to remember the melody.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's probably why I didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was more just quoting it.
Yeah, okay. And you're quoting in your best Elvis voice?
Okay. That was uncomfortable.
Oh, but it's like very much.
Let's not do that anymore.
All right, so what else, SCOTUS?
What else? This is one that you were celebrating. You were dancing on the tears of liberals everywhere. SCOTUS struck down the New York concealed carry restrictions. So New York basically would be like, you want to carry a firearm, do you?
Do you?
Well, why? And then you're like, self-defense. And they're like, what kind of fence?
What kind of fence?
Yeah, that's New York.
Man,
like this.
You can tell you did not have your caffeine, man.
Yeah, it really throws me off when I do not have caffeine before an episode. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So typically, to get,
I'm much funnier with caffeine, don't you think? Like, don't you think my humor gets better with caffeine?
You're also more on track, I think.
Yeah, I don't wander. Like, I get very distracted when I think caffeine helps me focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should start taking Adderall.
No, you should not.
I'm just kidding.
So yeah, the typical process to get a pistol permit in the state of New York is you have to fill out an application.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get
a bunch of referrals.
Referrals, yes. You have to have references. Like if you were to apply like to a job, you know how you put down your references. You have to do that for a pistol permit application. And like me explaining this is like the norm for us, but I realize that this is like in 48 other states, this is not even a thing.
I think it's funny because like in New York, it's like you almost never see anybody with a pistol because everybody you can't open carry here.
No.
And you have to carry concealed and you have to have a permit in order to do so. You actually can't even have a pistol. You can't actually own a pistol without having a license.
Without a permit, yes.
Yeah,
there's two permits in New York. There's a pistol permit and then there's a concealed carry permit.
So you cannot own a firearm. You can't own a pistol, I should say, because you can own like other things, like you could own like a shotgun or something. But you can't own a pistol in New York. You can't even buy a pistol in New York without either a permit or a concealed carry permit. So it's interesting. And then you like go to Tennessee, and we were like vacationing there last year, and we went into like the flea market, and we stopped at one of the little booths. It was like they sold like holsters and things like that because Tennessee is an open carry state, and we're just standing there, and my dad just like whips his pistol. He's like, yeah, check this out. And the guy behind the counter is like, yeah, check out mine. Everybody's just whipping out their pistol. Everybody's just passing pistols around. It was like this whole thing, and I was just laughing so hard because that's such a normal thing down there for like everybody to just have like a firearm and just be like protected and carrying a firearm, and it's just no big deal. Like, could you imagine though if you were at like a farmer's market in New York and you just whipped out your pistol?
Oh, dude, it would
be like mass
all
chaos.
HE double hockey sticks have broken loose.
People would be like screaming,
like mass shooting. Ah!
Yeah, it would.
He's got a gun.
It would be chaos. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Active shooter.
No, there's actual stories of people at the supermarket bending over and their concealed carry shows in the back
And
and
people freak
it's
out.
hysterical. He's got a gun.
Yeah. But that's like, it's so funny, like the difference in states that have like open carry and don't have gun restrictions, or at least as extreme as New York versus like New York, where you have to like beg, plead, borrow, steal. You have to maybe even bribe a cop or something.
He was ready to beg,
license.
steal, borrow, and barter.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, and like even specifically in our county, the wait time is like over a year right now to get a pistol permit. Like, it's insane.
Yep. So I applied for my pistol permit June 11th, and it's now June 25th the next year.
Yeah,
and I still don't have it.
Over a year.
I still don't. I finally got my interview. Oh yeah, well, let me go through the process because we kind of went off on a tangent there. Yeah. So yeah, once you get your references, you have to fill out this long application. You have to put in a certificate, like you have to have a certificate that you went to a pistol permit, like you went to a pistol class to learn what a pistol is, and it's supposed to be like a 6-hour course.
I had like a loose hair that was like attacking me, and I kept feeling it like hit me in the face and stuff. It finally just like worked its way out.
Nice.
It was freaking me out.
So you have to take a 6-hour class. You have to apply within 6 months of taking that class, and then once you apply, it has to be seen by a sheriff. Sheriff has to call you for an interview, and you have to be interviewed. You have to get your fingerprints on both hands, all 10 fingers, and you have to pay for that fingerprinting, which is now up to
all 10 fingers.
Yep, all 10 fingers if you have them. And then you have to pay for that, which is $136.75.
Say you were missing a finger. Do you think that they fingerprint another finger twice?
I don't know. No, probably not. Dude, what is going on with you? We need to make sure you have G Fuel for the next week, man.
Last week's wreck.
Yeah. Anyway, so, and then after that, what the kicker is that you have to get your references. You have to have them sign the initial application, and it has to be notarized. So all these hoops you have to jump through. So you have to get 4 references, all of their signatures notarized in front of a notary, and then
what, in front of a notary?
And then once you get your interview, and you have to get your reference signatures again. This time it doesn't. That was funny because he's like, all right, your reference is still good, yeah. And he's like, you have to get their signatures again. But the good thing is that you don't have to get them notarized this time. Oh, wow. So now I have to go hunt my references down again after a year.
Could you imagine if, like, within the year, a reference died?
Yeah, well, you just get a new reference. But
so then you'd have to get that reference also notarized and then get a second signature?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, very dumb.
You know what I was just thinking?
Well,
if you were missing all of your fingers, how would you shoot a pistol?
Okay. I'm just going to ignore that one. So once you get your references signatures again, then you have to turn it back in, and then it has to be approved by a judge. And then that's where I'm at right now. I'm waiting for it to be approved by a judge.
I'm just still wondering how you would shoot a pistol.
You don't.
If you didn't.
You don't.
If you, like, were missing all of your fingers.
You don't.
It's like, is it anatomically possible? I don't think it is.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think so.
Yeah. So anyways, the Supreme Court struck down.
You can have like a hook or something.
Some of the restrictions, particularly the one where you have to have a reason.
Yeah.
Because you actually have to detail. You have to detail a reason why you are applying for concealed carry.
New York is a may issue state, not a shall issue.
Which is, to me, a complete infringement on your Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, so you
have the right to bear arms if we want you to.
Yeah, this was struck down because of the 14th Amendment, actually. The 14th Amendment is basically states cannot set any restrictions that prevent you from exercising your constitutional rights. So that's what the 14th Amendment is. And obviously because we have the 14th Amendment, amendment, the restrictions for New York concealed carry infringed on the Second Amendment. So that allowed the Supreme Court, and that was a 6-3 favor. So all of the proper judges that we have voted, which John Roberts I still think is not really that much of a proper, but he was at least proper enough to vote this one.
Yeah.
The three I just don't even recognize as judges. Like, they are literally as dumb as rocks. The 3 liberals that are on the court.
You know what's infuriating about it is that they rule things based on their political views. Yeah. Their political views, and that's not the job of the Supreme Court. The job of the Supreme Court is to uphold the Constitution, whether you like it, whether you agree with it, whether you think it's good or bad, whether you want to bathe in it or not. It is your job as a member of SCOTUS to uphold the Constitution, not to put your own spin on it, not to be like, well, I really don't think that's what they meant. Like, I know it's what they wrote, but I don't think it's what they meant. That's not your job. Your job is to read the Constitution and to enact the Constitution as written.
Yeah.
That is your job.
Plain and simple. Here's the thing. If you're if you're part of the judicial system and you don't agree with the law, that's not your job.
Right.
That's a legislator job.
Right.
If you want to be a legislator, you can go and be a legislator, try to change the law.
Don't be a judge. Right. Don't be a judge. Run for something else.
But we have 3 branches of government. Literally, we have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and the judicial branch.
Right. If you don't like the legislative branch, then go run for that and stop being in the judicial branch.
Yeah.
Or
so if you want to frame a law that's going to push your political agenda, then be a legislator.
Right.
That's why we have it. To me, it makes no sense that there's people who want the Supreme Court to vote on their opinions.
Yep.
And to me, that's not a position that's votable. Why would you want to use the left's language, compromise our democracy by allowing somebody who's not voted on to make our decisions on law like that?
Right. It's what's really infuriating too is that it goes to this. The left was fine. It goes right back to Roe versus Wade.
Right.
The left was fine when Roe versus Wade was passed because they agreed with it, because they thought that it lined up with their moral values. So they didn't care that it overstepped the boundaries of the law. Now that SCOTUS is recognizing the boundaries of the Constitution and they're enacting that, now all of a sudden it's not okay.
Right.
Oh, it's not okay for them to do their job correctly because it doesn't line up with your moral values. No, that's not how it works. If you have a problem with any portion of our government and you want to make a difference, then make a difference on that level. But don't be like, oh, well, the judicial system shouldn't do its job because we don't agree with it.
Right.
That's not how it works. If you don't agree with the law, vote people into place in your state that agree with your moral values, or move to a state that has those moral values already in place.
Right.
Otherwise, get out of the country, because this is how our government works. And this is why our democracy has been so successful for so long, because we have a constitution that protects its people, because we have a judicial branch that is supposed to enact that constitution, and because we have legislators who can enact law on the state level. That is why our judicial system has lasted the way it has and has been so successful for so long.
Right.
And if you don't like it, go somewhere else, because literally, I don't care if you like it or not. Go somewhere else. That's the way it is. That's the reason we are America.
Right. America.
Yeah.
USA.
Go to freaking Europe if you don't want your rights. If you want everything that you do, to be determined by the government, go to Australia. Go to Canada. I'm sure Canada will take you.
If you don't think cops should have guns, go live in Britain, man.
Right. I mean, there's a plethora. I cannot say that word.
I think it's plethora
of countries that you can go live in if you don't want your rights. Right. Go live in them.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to Canada if you want. To be honest,
flee.
Canada's
Get
already
out.
there.
Yeah.
Canada banned weapons. It was crazy to me. The Justin Trudeau literally didn't say it behind closed doors. Didn't say it in a piece. He literally said it an oppressor. That you do not have the right as a Canadian to defend yourself with a firearm. That is so crazy to me. Yeah. And if you don't that's what happens though when you don't have the framework that we have in America. is that like you vote in one guy and then all of a sudden
he's making
world
all the
is
decisions.
upside down.
Right. He's making and you can celebrate that when it's going your way. Oh, it's so great. Look at this. Look at all the great things that they're doing.
Always swings.
But then the pendulum's going to go the other way, and you're going to have somebody in office that disagrees with you, and then you're going to be like, "Oh, our moral values are being compromised." That is why we have a judicial system. That is why we have a federal system. That's why our government is set up the way that it is. That's why the branches of government are the way that they are, because it protects our country from having one person or one group completely swing everything one way and then completely swing it the other. That is why we have those protections in place.
We've said it on the show before. Our system is made the way that it is to create gridlock. It's literally made so that it's hard to make change. And that's how you keep stability, right? Like, I mean, if you have a foundation that can easily be changed and swayed, then the house is going to collapse.
Right. Then you're going to have what happened in Canada, where you have truckers protesting and then they all get run off and beat up by the police. And then Justin Trudeau enacts all of the laws that he wants to do anyway. That's the kind of system you have when you don't have a constitution to protect you.
Right. Yep. So before we're right at the 45-minute mark, I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about what do you think is going to happen now that the SCOTUS has made these 3 big decisions? What do you think is the next chapter? I
would say they're probably going to go on vacation because they've actually done something this week.
I think there is a recess for the 4th. So
they're going to be like on recess sipping mimosas on the beach or something because they've actually done something.
Clarence Thomas is a gem.
He's brilliant. I think so I was reading this post earlier and it was this guy who had made like a series of tweets, and what he basically said is that we as Republicans in America, we didn't like abortion, but we were willing to let you have some. We didn't like gay marriage, but we were willing to let you have it.
Yeah.
We didn't like what was the other thing?
Gun restrictions.
We didn't like gun restrictions, but we were willing to settle for some of them because we were willing to compromise. But you as liberals, because he's addressing like the liberal community, you as liberals took it too far, and now we're fighting back, and we're not going to stop there. We're not going to stop at just taking it back to gun restrictions, and we're not going to stop at just taking it back to, abortion, is fine. We're not going to take it back to those things. We're going to go further. We're going to go back to the time when abortion was rare, was extremely rare. We're going to take it back to a time when you couldn't push transgender or your sexual orientations on people, or you couldn't force people to recognize certain things. We're going to take it back to a time when we didn't have gun restrictions. And he basically was saying you started this fight, and you are the one who forced us to fight, and now we're going to fight. And I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to start seeing other areas of legislation.
That's a very good point.
Opened up.
The reason why we're at this point is because the left has pushed so far. The reason why we got Trump was because the left pushed so far, and there was enough people in the country that said enough is enough. It literally is the independent voter that has the loudest voice, right? I mean, they either vote one way or the other, and the independent voter, the one who's in the middle of the road, said enough is enough. This isn't the country that I love. This is turning into something that I don't agree with.
Right.
I'm willing to allow other people's opinions to exist, but you're now forcing my kid to learn about these things. You're forcing my kid to go to a classroom where the teacher talks about their sex life.
Right.
Enough is enough.
Right.
And so you're going to continue to see this pushback. And Clarence Thomas,
I think it's great. It's like a classic bully on the playground scenario where there's the kid that goes to school and he just wants to go to school and do what he's got to do and go home, and there's that guy on the playground that just won't leave him alone and just keeps pushing him down, and finally he goes home and he's like, I don't know what to do, and the mom's like, just punch that dude in the face, and so the next time he's there he just freaking decks the bully and beats the crap out of him. And that's what liberals have. They have pushed Republicans to the ground for so long that Republicans are finally ready to punch them in the face. Not literally, but legislatively. And Clarence Thomas is already paving the way. So you see a lot of people on the left that are like, oh, this decision with Roe v. Wade, oh, we're going to go backwards. They're coming after gay rights next. They're coming after all this stuff next. And honestly,
conservatives don't really care much about allowing homosexuals to be married. Like that's not really an issue that we have a problem with. But what we do have a problem with is how it was legislated, right? So this was another Roe v. Wade situation where it was federalized that all 50 states have to allow same-sex marriage.
Right.
And Clarence
This
Thomas...
did this happen? When did this happen? In the early 2000s or something?
Yeah, like 2005, I think.
Yeah.
2007.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I remember like when it was like going forward, I remember thinking then like, oh my gosh, what is our country going to become if they take this
2009?
away from the states?
Maybe it was 2009. I think it was 2009 because Obama ran on a traditional marriage campaign in 2008. I think it was 2009 where same-sex marriage was federalized in all 50 states. And so Clarence Thomas says that they're going to go after those because it's and same thing with
like
contraception.
What he said is it's time to reconsider.
It's time to reconsider because those things again should be left to the states.
Right.
They're not in the Constitution.
Right.
Your right, quote unquote, right to contraception is not in the Constitution.
Right.
So therefore, the federal government has no power, no jurisdiction to touch it. And again, like we're not coming after those things per se.
You know what
if you want to be in New York and you want to be a dude and marry a dude, that's always going to be there. That's always going to happen.
You want to be a dude and marry a dude.
Yeah, if you want to be a dude and marry a dude.
I remember like for the longest time I used to call everyone dude and like women would be like, I'm not a dude. And I would be like,
you remember the dudette movement? Dude and dudette?
Yeah. I do. And it was really annoying. And I was like, I'm gonna say dude if I want to.
But yeah, like you said, we're gonna continue to push back
term.
And we're going to correct the errors.
Right. Right. So, and I think it's great. And if you're thinking to yourself, how do I push back? How do you push back? You vote. You vote.
June 28th, New York primaries, man.
Yes.
Go out there.
Go to your primaries. Not like, oh, well, my vote doesn't count anyway because nobody listens to me or whatever. Like, shut the front door. Stop making excuses for being lazy. Get out and vote in your primaries. Yeah. Get out and vote in November when the elections roll around.
I gotta say,
stop complaining about the things you don't like about your state.
For the governor, we have a good chance, I think. I think if all the conservatives go out and vote, we definitely have a good chance.
We have a chance if the rest of the state will vote.
Yeah.
The problem is there has been ingrained in New Yorkers outside of New York City that they're outnumbered and in fact they actually are not. Right. The number of people outside of New York City, as far as registered voters, it's no longer out the rest of the
about like 60-40
the state. It's no longer, and generous, it's more like probably like 54, 56. Yeah. Like it's a small margin, but the city no longer can outvote the rest of the state if the rest of the state will go out and vote. So that is why it is so important for you to exercise your right and your responsibility to be educated on the people who are running for office in your area and then go out and vote for them. Laziness, saying that you can't make a difference, saying that your vote doesn't count, that is how we get to places like California and New York where things are so far left because let me tell you what, those people who are pro-abortion, they're going to go out and vote. They're going to be out there and they're going to be like, oh, I'm voting for this guy because he thinks it's so great when we chop up babies. And they're going to be fine with that. If you're sitting at home saying, I can't make a difference, you're right. You won't make a difference and your state is going to continue to go downhill. So if you want to make a difference, go out and vote, not just on November, but go out and vote in your primaries. Be educated on the people who are running and vote for the people who represent what you believe in.
Yep. That's good.
And if you don't, we're going to talk about it on here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it here. So yeah, I think that was
and talk to your friends also.
Yeah.
Do what we do. You don't have to have a podcast, but talk to your friends about it.
Talk to your friends, yeah.
Be like, you know what's really interesting? You know what's really interesting? Partial birth abortion. Do you know what that is? And people are going to be like, no. What? But I think it's good. And then you're going to be like, you know what? It's actually like completely delivering a baby except for their head, and then you stick a rod in their brain and you scramble their brains. Isn't that crazy? And they're going to be like, wait, is that a real thing? Do people really do that? Like they actually deliver a baby up to its head and then scramble its brains. And then you're like, yeah, crazy, right? And then it'll be like, well, man, I don't think I agree with that. It's a lack of education and a lack of people talking about the issues. That's what causes things to go where they are now. It's
pretty clear at this point that if you break down what actually abortion is, there's so many people that choose to be blinded by what actually abortion is. Most Americans believe that once there's a heartbeat, once there's a flutter, then that's it. That's off the table because it's its own life.
No, it's like a parasite because it can't live. It can't live.
That voice
outside.
Is so small that like, I can't believe that we're.
No, but see, the thing is, it can't live
so
outside the mother. It can't live outside the mother. That means that because it can't live without your assistance, it's a parasite. Well, guess what? The baby who makes it 9 months and then is born also can't live without someone taking care of it. Genius. Your puppy couldn't live without someone taking care of it. Genius. Doesn't make it a parasite. Tell you what, man.
So,
yeah.
Next week, we'll leave you with this.
Spoiler alert.
Next week is our season finale.
Season 2
finale.
Yep, we're gonna take some time off in the summer.
Yep.
Let y'all enjoy the nice weather.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Do you have a rec before we go? I don't have a rec.
I kind of forgot about recs, and it's funny because I think about them all week, and then I always think oh yeah, I'm gonna make this my rec.
I got a rec.
Then I forget about it.
I got a rec now. You had a rec that wasn't a product last week. It was
activity.
It was an activity. It was like family dinners.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to rec doing something outdoors with your family this summer. I highly recommend it.
Yep, we're going.
We go out in the pontoon boat when the weather is nice, and this is the weekend for it. So
the pontoon boat.
Well, by the time this airs, we'll have gone on the pontoon boat this weekend.
Yep.
I think it's important to enjoy the nature. I sound like a hippie, but do something with your like we went to the park this weekend. That was a good family bonding.
Yeah, it's fun.
Take your kids out, do something, go to the park. That's my rec, man, because it's just so cool. Like, I mean, kids, they don't think about it, like what the bonding is, but as a parent, like I felt like I was bonding. You know what I mean? Like it was nice.
Yeah, it was. It was very nice.
It was very nice. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, spend time with your family. That's a great rec. It's a fantastic rec. We should have more viewers.
Specifically, go outdoors with your family this summer.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great rec.
All right, we'll leave you with that. We'll see you next week for the season finale.